Right, welcome everyone. This is session one of rendering and animation. My name is Russell Sidonia. I'll be taking you for this class for this semester. We will meet once a week on a Thursday between 10 and 12. Up on screen at the moment is the unit code plus the short name of this unit, Revit rendering and animation. I've also included the full name there of the unit. Now this particular recording is being done for the classroom that I'm currently in. It's also going out to external students enrolled in this unit, and it's also going out to external students enrolled in another unit called Digital Concepts. So that's CPP BDN 4008. Students that are enrolled in that particular unit will know who they are. They do have a separate Learn site, but for the first 6 months, first sort of term, I guess, of the semester, both you in this class and external students will be doing the same initial learning as students enrolled into the Digital Concepts unit. So it's basically identical in the first term. After the first term, we sort of go off in different directions. This class will do a different assessment task, or we'll sort of work on other learning, and then the people in the Digital Concepts unit will do something different again. So the initial recordings will be watched by both groups and posted on each of the respective Learn sites. Now, on that, what we'll do perhaps is I just need to go through some work health and safety issues or compliance issues with regard to the facility here, mainly in the area of fire alarms and fire evacuation. So I'll go through that shortly, but I won't do that in the recording. I'll just do that for people in the class. So I'll pause the recording at the moment. I'll go through that, then I'll come back to and restart the recording. All right. So we've gone through the workplace health and safety induction. So we'll make a start on the session. Now, external students by now have received an email from me with instructions and a link on how to get to the Learn site. They've also received a Learn enrolment key. I think I did check this morning, and there were about sort of 15 out of 24 external students that have currently accessed the site. So now the other thing is, as you are continuing students, you're familiar with Office 365, and you're familiar with your emails from TAFE, and you have all perhaps redirected TAFE emails to your personal email address. I won't go through that again unless some of you want me to do that. The only thing that I'll say about your emails or email system through TAFE is that Office 365 has been upgraded, by Microsoft. And for instance, over here in the corner, you've got a little link here called the New Outlook. And presumably they've upgraded all of their apps to the new look. So if you haven't sort of gone in recently, maybe just have a look at that and click this little button here, which will give your email client a fresh new look. That's quite nice. Okay, so it just does an upgrade and it just makes it look a little bit different. All right, I will sort of talk about OneDrive shortly for file storage and also other file storage options. So with regard to students in the class, what to bring to classes. So something to write with, something to write on, and the other thing, I think most of you have one, is a perhaps some sort of USB external hard drive. I'm just holding that up at the moment. I apologise to external students that can't see it, but the best I can probably do is maybe just do a search for Officeworks. Yeah, so external hard drive, something like this. You're looking at 1 terabyte of space for $59 as a separate USB external device for file storage. So, does anybody? I think most of you have these with you. Do you have you brought them today?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone not got one? Okay. Some of you may be using thumb drives. I'm not a big fan of thumb drives, only because anything without moving parts sort of tends to make me nervous. Okay, because I've in recent times I've actually had two of them fail on me, and I'm extremely nervous about them. Whereas I've got a couple of these, and yes, they do fail, but they're a lot more reliable than the electronic ones. That's why I stick with them. So they tend to have that built-in reliability. So yeah, so if you haven't got one, it might be an idea. Now, given the nature of the exercises and assessment tasks, which I'll go through shortly for this unit, we're going to be working with relatively large files. Okay. The other thing is, in the past, I might also say at this point that we've actually switched to a new Revit version this year. So we're now on 2019. To assist students, I guess, in the classroom with installing the software at home, we've provided the Revit installation file set on computers here in classroom. That's proving to be a little bit difficult this year, but we still possibly can do that, but you would need something like this to actually copy the installation files onto to take home to install on your machines at home. Okay. The alternative is to go onto the Autodesk Education Community website and then log in with your Autodesk ID and then download and install the software at home through the website. Okay. If anyone needs any further clarification on that, I can go through that quickly as well. But I think you all know how to do that and what to do. Now, and I'll talk about that when we get to the Moodle site. But for now, yes, you will need some sort of physical device for file storage, and it's also a good idea to have a secondary file storage option, which could be OneDrive, Microsoft OneDrive, which is available to you via Office 365. All right. All right. So portal services. So we're going to learn the Learn site. So if you have enrolled into my Learn site by now, it will come up on the dashboard here, possibly. You can pick it up under My Courses. It's this one here. By the way, the other unit I referred to was this one here, Produce Digital Design Concept Drawings. So that's the other site, that's the other group of students that are going to be watching these recordings and doing the same work initially as you people. All right, so they will know who they are. So as I say, external students have received an enrolment key for this site. So many of you have already accessed the site. I sent the emails out last weekend. There has been a little bit of confusion as to sort of what to do to get started. So I guess I will explain that fully now. But I guess what I like to do is actually get the emails out early to external students, so at least they can sort of put the enrolment key in, make sure that they have full access to the site and they are ready to go. The other thing I did a week or so ago was send emails out to all continuing students that I could think of, letting them know that we're using Revit 2019 and AutoCAD 2019 this year, mainly for externals to think about downloading the software onto their home computers to get themselves ready for this year's study with the current versions of Revit and AutoCAD. Okay. So for people in the classroom, you'll need to do that as well, because there will be a requirement that you do some work at home for this unit, possibly. All right. But again, I'll talk about I guess the exercises and assessment requirements shortly. But yes, if you don't, whatever you don't complete in class, you'll need to sort of perhaps potentially do at home. Now, looking at the site, so on the initial page there's a very brief paragraph there that describes the unit. The full name is at the top. I've put the closing date for the unit there as being June the 14th. So that's the date that we close that's the closing date for all assessment tasks, so that we can actually start marking. All right. Now, as far as the site is concerned, there are 5 grids up there at the moment. Now, and again, if you know how my Learn sites operate, I don't reveal everything right at the beginning. Okay, so I keep some cards hidden. So mainly there's some topic 1 is there, which we're having a look at today. There are some other exercises that are not available just yet, and of course the assessment tasks are not published yet either. So they will be turned on as we go through. Now, we'll just have a quick look at start here. So on this page, we've got the learning schedule. We've got the unit descriptor, which I'll come back to in a minute, but I wanted to draw your attention to this part here, which is applications for extension. Perhaps we'll go back here to this section here, note. When it comes to assessment tasks, we're going to, the policy has always been that with assessment tasks, you will submit the assessment task initially. I will go through it, mark it, give you feedback. If I feel that there are areas that you need to fix up, I will certainly very quickly let you know, and I'll actually give you an opportunity to fix and resubmit. Now, what this paragraph states is that there is only one chance to resubmit. If you do resubmit and you've complied with all of my feedback and you've done what I've asked you to do and I'm happy with it, I'll give you a pass. If you haven't, then there is a problem. Okay. So, if we have in this case we only have 2 assessment tasks, but if you perhaps don't get through the first one, it doesn't mean you've failed the entire unit. It may be that you actually pick up those elements and performance criteria in the second assessment task, and I can sign you off for the entire unit as a pass. All right. So 1 submission per assessment task, if need be. Any questions on that?
Could it be the other way around too? If you did number 1 so well and failed number 2, you're
No, it doesn't work that way, no, because the second assessment is more comprehensive generally than the first, because it's you learn progressively, so you actually build up, not always, but it's, but in this case the 2 assessment tasks are quite different, although they have sort of similar crossover skills and knowledge. Yeah. So, but the thing is that I'm sure everyone will be okay with both assessment tasks. All right. Now, applications for extensions. So they may be granted no later than 1 week before the due date, and only when an application for an extension form is submitted in writing. I've put the actual form here on the Learn site, and so if you feel that you are slipping behind or there is some very good reason why you're not going to make a deadline, in the first instance, can you please speak to me? And that includes external students. Please talk to me at any point if you think you're having difficulty. All right. I'd rather you do that than wait a week before something is due and say, I'm not going to make it. Okay. So communication is vital. Now, if we work out a plan for you and we need to fill in this form and make it formal, okay? So just if you can appreciate that a request or an application for an extension is not automatic. It is by negotiation. All right, so we have the right of refusal. Now, having said that, the second set of information here goes through and provides you with acceptable reasons for an extension. Now, I'm not going to go through this. You can read this for yourself. Okay, so you can find out what is an acceptable reason and what is not an acceptable reason for a request for an extension. Okay. All right, now moving back up, we've got the learning schedule here. We've got the unit descriptor, the unit of competency, which comes off training.gov site. Contains the unit descriptor, and then it goes through and lists all the elements and performance criteria. Now, what is this unit about? Well, predominantly it is or is concerned with with animation in an architectural context. So if you have a look at the elements and performance criteria, it talks about materials and finishes and rendering, light and shade, but that's really, I guess, a forerunner to the bigger picture with this unit, which is animating or animation. And when we talk about animation, I guess, in the built environment, it's more about presenting the building or structure, not animating individual objects so much. So, for instance, if we were doing an animation with a building, of course, all we can really do is we can fly past it, we can travel through it, circle it, and present it as an animation, something that we can actually watch and sort of get an appreciation of what the building is from all sides and internally. So essentially that's what the unit encompasses. So initially you're going to learn how to develop and I guess set up a model for presentation. And when I say set up, that means applying materials and finishes, adding an environment, so topography, trees, cars, roadway, driveway, landscaping, that type of thing, a context for the model, considering lighting conditions if it's external and internal, and once that's all done, we then do some still renders, and once we're happy with all of that, the way the model presents, we then have a look at the method of providing a path around or through the building to produce that animation. And we have to consider, obviously, the path itself, the speed of the camera, the height of the path, to make sure that we present that building the best possible way we can. Now, Revit itself has the capability of working with materials and textures and assigning materials to building elements, which by now you know, because you've done a little bit of work with that. but it also has the ability to set up a model for a very basic rudimentary animation, which we call a fly around. Now, Revit can do it, but it's not the best program for it. Okay. There are other dedicated animation programs which will use Revit models, for instance. One of which is called Lumion, spelled Lumion. And I had a student last year that gave me a Lumion-based animation, and I'll find it and show it to you because I want you to see it. And it was just fantastic. You know, it really was nice. Okay, not to say that you can't produce something nice in Revit, but different methodologies, much more offered in packages like Lumion for realism and so forth. So, but Revit will do it to a certain point, and Revit is what we're going to use, Revit 2019. Now, just coming back to the learning schedule. So, does that answer you? Does that sort of you've got an idea now what we're going to be doing holistically within the unit? Okay. Essentially, there are 2 assessment tasks. The first of which really sort of will test you on your ability to create materials and finishes, assign them, create an environment, set up perspective views, and then create renders, which are the still images. So that's the first assessment. The second assessment will ask you to produce a 30-second animation.
With previous.
Yeah, and the good thing is that once you have set this building up for rendering, it can be then reused for the animation, and all that base work is done. So you just then concentrate on animating it. Does that make sense? So that's assessment task 2. So task 1 is your rendering. Task 2 is really producing that 30-second animation. All right. Excited? Good. Good. Okay. Now, we've got the learning schedule there, so that will give you an idea of what we're going to cover week by week. So the way we're going to run this is I'm going to, today you're going to start a little exercise which will cover all of the, just give you some exposure to all of the sort of rendering aspects of the software. Okay, and once you see it, you'll say, okay, I've done that. Right. Okay, I know that. But I'll talk about that shortly. Okay. I went through it last night for the first time in Revit 2019, and I thought, okay, well that's different. That's different. Didn't know that happened. That's not happening. That's different. So it was good, really good, because Revit 29 has changed ever so slightly, and is now really nice to use, but there are some subtle changes. And that little exercise, although you've done it, you haven't done it in Revit 2019. Okay, so it's a good little intro. I guess the reality is that some of you haven't touched Revit since November last year. Okay, guilty, you know. So you might be a little bit rusty. So with my first classes in a new year, I like to give each class a little exercise to do, just to get the Revit brain going again, all right? Particularly with a new version of the software. Okay, so yes, you may think, yes, I've done this before, I don't want to do it again, but I want you to do it, okay, because you will discover things. And I'm not going to tell you necessarily what the differences are. I want you to perhaps sort of see if you can spot them. Okay. Okay. So initially, we're going to go through that exercise today, rendering concepts. That will spill over into next week. Next week, we're going to look at materials. We're going to go through a fresh, new set of exercises to look at creating material and working with materials. We eventually get to a rendering practice exercise here, where I'll provide you with a little basic model, and we'll just go through the process of setting it up for rendering. Okay, assigning materials, setting up views, setting up an environment, putting in trees, cars and people, and then doing some renders. Okay, and then we're then into the first assessment task. Okay, so after the term break, the assessment task continues. Then we get into I'll introduce animation. Again, we'll do some preliminary exercises to show you how to work with animation, how to set up a model for animation. And then I'll introduce the final assessment task, which is the animation assessment. Okay? And that essentially is the unit. How does that sound? Good? All right, any questions?
Will we be actually like designing any buildings, or you give us a scene and then we just create renders?
That's a good question. For both assessment tasks, I will provide you with a model. It does come with topography, a ground underneath, a topography. So you can either accept and use mine, or you can use one of your own. Okay, so if you've produced a model last year or in another subject, and you feel that it is complete, it mainly sort of complete. There will be a requirement to actually work inside the building and develop a space or a room inside the building, just one. But the external, the shell and everything outside has to be complete for you to actually assign materials and then develop that model. So you either use mine or you use your own. If you're going to use your own, just run it past me so that I can sort of just cite it and say, okay, that looks good, or you might need to sort of do some additional work on it. But there is really no requirement for you to actually produce a model from scratch for either assessment task. All right. Good. Happy with that? Okay. So as I say, the due dates I've put here. So the due date for assessment task 1 is Friday, May the 10th, 5 p.m. and assessment task 2, Friday, June the 14th at 5 p.m. All right. So just make sure that you're quite clear on those dates. I will keep reminding you. Yes.
Why are we finishing so early compared to other classes? You know, they go up until week 16. I mean, or week 18, kind of thing.
Yeah, June the 14th, that may be a week beyond that, but I like to give myself a good week for marking, because I like to go through all of your assessment tasks thoroughly and give you good feedback. Okay, and it gives us an opportunity to, if there are issues with your first submissions, it gives us an opportunity to give you that feedback and give you the chance to resubmit so that we can actually go through and have a look at your resubmission. So it all takes time. So at the end of the semester, it's all a little bit sort of crazy. You know, we like time to actually give proper feedback, or I do, and all lecturers like to do that. Give you proper feedback and go from there. All right. So if there are no questions, I think what we'll do is, do you want to take a little break and then come back, or do you want to keep going? Break? 5 minutes? Okay. All right. So I hope everyone is okay with what we're going to do in the unit as a whole, and I guess what we're going to do week by week as within the learning schedule. So we've talked about assignment submissions, we talked about applications for extension. I briefly mentioned the software. Now, if you are going to install at home, which I encourage you to do so, you'll need to install the 2019 version of Revit to maintain compatibility with the classroom computers. Because again, I think most of you are aware that if you produced something in class in 2019, in version 2019, and you take it home and try and pull it up in Revit 2018, it won't work. Okay, because you can't go back to a previous version. All right, so you will need 19 at home. Now, the thing is that 2019, that this version has been out or available since April last year. Okay, and what happens is that in April this year, version 2020 is released. Okay, so again, what I'm saying there is that if you are installing Revit in a few months' time, by all means, you know, have a look at 2020, but have 2019 on your computer at home and work in 2019. Just be careful there, because if you upgrade your file to 2020 at home, you can't bring it back here to TAFE to 19. Does that make sense? All right. So just bear that in mind.
So we can use it at home, right? So we can open up a 19 here, take it at home, and if we're on something less than 19, away we go, right? And then when we close it, right, that's it. It comes back here.
It all depends on whether you save it. You can open, you know, it depends on saving. And I guess the thing is that in the classroom you're using 19. So if you had 18 and 19 and 20 at home, it won't open in 18. It will open in 20. If it opens in 20 and you save it, it stays in 20. It won't go back to 19, it won't go back to 18. Okay?
Do you have an option to save it in the older version? Like
No, it's not like AutoCAD. There is no option to do a save back to a previous version. Okay? So
if you don't save it, then and you close it, it's just as it was before you opened it.
yeah, the thing is that if you went from 19 to 20 and you opened up your 19 file in 20, it would go through an upgrade process and you could see it in 20. Now, if you closed the Revit 20 without saving, the file would not be affected. It would stay in 19 or 18. Yes?
Would it auto-save into 19, the 20 version?
No, Revit doesn't auto-save. No, it's not like AutoCAD. Okay, so, as I say, all of the procedure for getting hold of the 19 version is all still exactly the same as any other Revit version. Okay, there's a link there, a document there that that you can use as a refresher on how to get hold of the software. I guess the important thing is that prior to installing Revit, as you know, you'll need to be connected to the internet for the entire time you're installing, and you'll need to make sure that before you install Revit on your computers at home, make sure that your computer, your Windows 10, has the correct language set. So make sure it's set to English Australia, not English United States. So that'll be in your regional and language settings in your operating system. Okay, so just check that before you go any further. All right, because invariably every year we get students that have installed Revit. They open up the architectural template and it's in feet and inches. Okay, and it's only because their computer system has been set to English United States, and that's what Revit picks up on when it actually downloads the templates and content. It thinks, okay, well, this person's in the US and they want the imperial set. All right, so, but that's all explained in this document here. Okay, now next there is a learning resource for this unit, which is this one here. Now it's called Interior Design using Autodesk Revit 2019. Now we are going to be working from a chapter from this book, but not the whole book. The chapter we'll be working from will come in a few weeks' time, or a couple of weeks' time, when we look at working with materials, creating materials and modifying materials. Okay, so I'll provide the chapter to you electronically. Okay. Now that takes us to our first topic and exercise, which is rendering views. Now again, as I said earlier, yes, you've done this particular exercise, but it is useful as a refresher. It's useful to go through it again and just have perhaps discover some of the new features of Revit. Become, have a look at the new features, become familiar and comfortable with it, and perhaps as you work through the exercise, there might be some sort of subtle differences between the instruction and what the software does or looks like. So maybe you can sort of let me know what you find. I went through it last night and found quite a few things that had changed, and I had to relearn myself and discover, oh, that works, that doesn't, or that's different. Oh yes, good, that's good, that's good. Yes, I know how that works now. So it's all good. So work through that one. I would like you to set up some sort of folder structure as described in the exercise, and any renders you do I'd like you to save in your own folders, but be quite clear here, this is not an assessment task and there's no requirement for you to submit the renders that you produce. Okay, it's just an exercise. All right. Now, just a small point with Revit 2019. Can you just do a search for it? Okay. Hit the Windows button on your keyboard, lower left-hand corner. Type the word Revit. Find the desktop app Revit 2019. Right mouse on it and pin it to the taskbar. Mine's already pinned. Now, so it'll sit down here. Launch the software. While that's launching, I'm just going to come back to my Learn sites and back to software for home. Now, when your Revit comes up to what we call the start screen, what do you notice?
So different.
It looks different. Okay, it's all sort of predominantly white. Anyone spot the major difference here, apart from the fact that it's all white?
You think we should choose a template?
Yeah, there are no quick links for templates, for starting templates. Remember, there was, I think somewhere up here there was 4 links that you could actually click on to sort of start a new project.
Just go new.
Yeah, the thing is that they're not there now.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've changed the format. Now, here's a side point, everyone. Okay, when you install Revit 2019 for the first time, it doesn't look like that. It's going to look like the old Revit. All right? So when you install Revit for the first time and launch it, it will look like old Revit. Now, what makes it look like this is an update. Okay. Now, once you have installed Revit and you've started it, it's launched, and you've put in your serial number and product key, and it fires up, and it's all working. You've got your templates you can see there. Go in and start a project and see if you've got all your families loaded. Everything's metric, everything's good. Okay. Close the program. Now you can come back to Learn, so you may have done this beforehand, but you will need to apply this update. So an update to the software. An update is applied separate to the program, and it's applied when the program is closed. Yes?
So do we download 2019 and then the update, or can we just update our old version?
No, this update does not update 2018. Okay, this is an update for 2019. So step 1 is install 2019 and make sure it's fully functional. Step 2, download this update and then run it separately. It's just it's an executable. It'll download to your downloads folder. You double click on it. Comes up with a little screen saying updating Revit. Has a progress bar. At the end of it, it'll say successful. Close it, and then relaunch Revit, and Revit will come back with that white look. Because that's what the update does. One of the things the update does is it converts it to that white startup screen. Yes?
Russell, when we go to 2019 and we install that, to activate it, will we need to contact Autodesk Educational and get another new product key for it and all?
Yeah, you will. You'll have to. Well, it depends. You will have to actually log in if you're going to download and install it directly from the Autodesk website. You'll need to go to the Autodesk Education Community website, log in with your Autodesk ID and password, and I can quickly show you the steps to do that now, but you need to know what your Autodesk ID is, and you'll need the password for that Autodesk ID, which is what you use to get hold of the 2018 products. Okay, so you'll need to know that. Now, and I'll just run through that quickly as well. But just to finish up here. Now, when I click on this link here, it will take you to my Dropbox. See the download button there? Direct download. Ignore all of this. Okay, so you'll then download this file to your downloads folder, save file, and when that's in your downloads folder, you'll actually then double click on it to run it. Now, this is not installing the entire program, it's just running an update. Okay, so is that clear enough? Now, I've put this in my Dropbox and linked it back for students because this particular update is difficult to find on an Autodesk site. All right, so I've just made it easy for students to access. Okay, so I'll cancel that. Now, with regard to getting hold of Revit 2019 through the education website, Autodesk, and perhaps what I'll do is, I'll go back up here. Now the thing is that this document here will provide you with so that's the URL to get you to the Autodesk site. And the thing is that all of you have already done part one. Okay, all you're doing is going back to the site here. Now, you don't need to sign in initially. What you do is you click Free Software. Go down and select Revit. And this is the point at which you sign in. Okay, so now what you do then is you select your version, which is 19, your operating system, which is Windows 64-bit, and your language, which is English. Okay, now please do not write that number down. That's my unique number. But that's the number you will need, plus the product key, for activation of the software. Okay, now that will be emailed to you by Autodesk, so you'll have a record of it. So you can ignore that for now. What you'll do then is go down to Install Now, and you'll choose this option here, download now. Don't choose install now because it's quite problematic. Do a download now. So if you have a fast, reliable internet connection, cross your fingers and your toes and hope for the best. It should be okay. It'll download and it will install in the background, or you'll see the installation start happening. Follow the prompts, install it. When it's fully installed, you'll then go to a desktop icon and you'll launch it. And upon launching it, you'll be prompted for these numbers. Okay, so once you get past this, it accepts those. It comes up with a licensing screen saying thank you for activating. You're good to go. So then, once that's all happened, you can close the program, go back to the update that I just spoke about, and apply the update, restart the program, and you're ready to work. Okay? Yes?
If you're operating a Mac using Parallels, do you need to be in the Windows mode to do all of that? Or
Yes, you do. Yeah. So if you've got a Mac and you've already put Parallels Desktop on it, and you've got Windows installed, you'll need to be in that Windows environment when you do all this. Yeah. All right. So it's the same process as you went through with 2018. So.
and just one more question. Sorry, Russell. Last semester you did mention about Parallels 14, a updated, more pleasant experience. I think the words that you used, enhanced, running Revit. So if you're running Parallels 13, you think it would pay that little bit and extra and get 14 on?
Yeah, I think if 13 is working, then leave it. If you've got no problems with 13, if it's working, then leave it, I would say.
Maybe a bit slow, even though the computer's quite powerful.
But if you're going for the new version of Parallels for desktop, you're going to be paying another $49.99 for it. So but it's up to you. Yeah. But if you've got an earlier version of Parallels, you've got Windows on it, you've got Revit working, then leave it alone. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's, if you haven't already, let's make a start with this exercise called rendering views. So you'll need to download this Revit starting file first, and then work from this procedure document. Now, note that this is version 9. This went up late last night. Okay, so I made some minor changes to it and put it up last night. So if anyone has started this exercise prior to yesterday, there are some very, very minor changes. Okay, I'll just show. I'll just get started, and I'll just show you one of the minor changes that I've discovered. All right.
When you start it, you know how you're supposed to save, and you say do 2 for the things. It's giving you a different dialog box there.
Okay, I'll just save this to download. And now coming back to the Learn Startup page. So when I said before that there is no quick links to the starting templates for projects, you will have to click New and then choose from here. Okay, so that's the workaround. If it's a new project. If you're opening an existing, which you are, you click Open. Okay, so open, I need to go to downloads, select and open. So it goes through this upgrade process from 16 to 19. Now, it's not until you actually go up to File, Save as Project, this is where you actually, under Options, this is where you actually set your maximum backups. So that hasn't changed, okay? Yeah. So if you wanted to change that back to 1 or 2, I can't remember what it actually stipulates there. And the file name, you're going to change the file name slightly. So again, yeah, so you're actually going to call it Pool House Exercise and save, and then go from there. Now, if I can just have your attention for a moment. You know when you, so if I go to a 3D view, for instance, which you do, which is one of the first things you do, if I open up a floor plan and a couple of elevations, a site. Now, what's different with 2019? One of the things is these tabs across the top. Now, so I've got several tabs, several views open like that. But if I want to close all views or tabs but the current one, I go up here to close. Now in 2018 it used to be called close hidden windows. Now they're now calling them inactive views. Now the question is, do you have this icon on your systems?
Yes.
Now oddly enough, last night at home I didn't have that icon up there. So if anybody at home, or if you at home do not have this icon up the top there, can you let me know? Because I worked out how to get it there, but it wasn't there on my computer at home. And I couldn't work out why initially.
Was it because of the update?
It could be. Because the update on these computers is not the latest, which is the one that I've provided to you. So I'd be interested to see, once you apply the update, if it actually gets rid of this. Okay? If it does, let me know, and I will go through this in class next week, and I'll show you how I fixed it. All right? Now, just a couple of things. So tabs here. So to switch views. Now, if you go to the View tab itself, okay, everyone watching? Now, if you want to have multiple views, like tiled views, you would go to Tiled Views here. Okay, so there's nothing new in that, but each of these views, let's say that I wanted to, and I'll do a ZA, which is a zoom all to fit. let's say that I wanted to make this site plan the current view, the full screen view. I couldn't work out any way to do it because there's no maximise button here. Do you know what I mean by that? Okay, so how do I make this full screen? Now, again, this is a little voyage of discovery. Okay, I thought, okay, well, there's no button to do it in the view itself, but there is another control up here called tab views. Okay, note the shortcut TW. So there, WT for tile views, TW for tab views. So this, if I click into this window, it makes it current, and if I go to tab views, then that becomes, and do a Z all, that becomes the view that goes full screen. Does that make sense? Okay, so WT, window tile, TW, tab views. All right. And if I click up here and close inactive, it closes all of those views except the one I'm looking at. All right, so that's one of the major differences in 2019. Now, what I'd like you to do now, and then I'll leave you alone, okay, is just go to open up your 3D view. Now, here's a question or a challenge. There is something in this 3D view that is not displaying, and I want you to work out and tell me what it is. But I want you should know how to actually show something in the view that's hidden in a visual sense. So can you do that for me, please? Can you press a button and show me something that's hidden in this view, or things that are hidden in this view? Zoom out and tell me what is new. So everyone got reveal hidden elements set? So this one here. Look at this. Levels.
Very weird.
What's weird? The box is not new. The box is it's just a section box. No, I've taught you about those. Yep, definitely. We've covered section boxes. You did an exercise in intro with section boxes. The section box is not new, but the levels are new. Select one of the levels, and I want you to unhide it by category. Okay. And then I want you to go back to normal viewing mode. All right. So the second new feature of Revit 2019 is levels in 3D views. So when you do this type of thing, and if I change my visual style to hidden line, that's cool. Yes, that's good. So you can actually click on it and you can swap the heads over. Okay, cool. All right, so we've got 10 minutes or so left of today's session, so I'll let you continue working through this exercise. Again, let me know, or just jot down anything that you or note anything that you feel is different to the notes or different to your experience with previous versions of Revit, because I went through it last night. I picked up a few things, but you might pick up a few other things. All right, all good. So So you'll continue with this exercise for the rest of today's session. We will spend a little bit of time on it next Thursday, but that's essentially all the input that I'm going to give you today. So I hope that explains the unit, the requirements, and so forth, and everyone is happy and comfortable with what we're doing. All right. So I'll sign off today as far as the recording is concerned. You'll continue working for another 10 minutes, and we'll meet again next Thursday. So thank you, everybody.